All right, let's dive into this. Today, we're looking at KeyChain Pay.
Okay.
So KeyChain Pay, they want to revolutionize renting, right?
Mhm.
Using AI and smart contracts.
Hmm.
And they're all about making the whole process, less of a headache for everyone involved. Like
Right.
peace of mind for both the landlords and the tenants. Which, I mean, when you hear all those rental horror stories, it sounds pretty tempting.
It does.
And what I find really interesting is they're not just some small startup. They're already up and running in places like the UK and Hong Kong.
Yeah, they're definitely making moves.
So what's the big deal with KeyChain Pay? What are they doing that's so different?
Well, one of the biggest things is they're tackling a problem that's plagued landlords forever. Late rent payments.
Yeah, that's a classic.
They're actually claiming their AI can guarantee on-time rent every single month
Wow, every month. How do they pull that off?
by automatically taking the funds directly from the tenant's account.
Oh, so it's not just reminders, it's actually handling the payment itself. But I mean, doesn't that sound a little risky for tenants?
Well, that's where the smart contracts come in. It's like a digital agreement
Yeah.
that automatically makes the payment when certain conditions are met.
Okay, I'm starting to see how it all fits together. But what about landlords? Aren't they worried about glitches or something going wrong?
To address that, KeyChain Pay offers a no fees if we miss it guarantee.
No fees if they miss a payment. They're pretty confident in their system.
They seem to be.
So walk me through this, like from start to finish, how does it actually work for both sides?
All right, so let's say you're a landlord. You'd connect your KeyChain Pay account to your bank account. Pretty straightforward. Then when a tenant signs up, they link their credit or debit card.
Makes sense.
And then KeyChain Pay's system, it figures out the best day to charge the tenant, like based on when the rent's due and stuff like that.
So it takes all the guesswork out of it?
Yeah, it tries to. About 2 weeks before the rent is due, KeyChain Pay charges the tenant's card and makes sure the money's ready to go to you on the actual due date.
And I'm guessing since it's all automated, you get updates on what's happening with each payment, right?
Exactly. Real-time updates.
Huh. No more awkward phone calls or chasing down checks. That's pretty slick. But what about tenants? What's in it for them besides, just paying rent automatically?
Well, they've got some incentives, like you can earn cash back or rewards for using the platform to pay your rent.
Oh, that's a nice perk.
And they've got some flexibility too. You can split payments across different cards if you need to.
That's handy.
Plus, using a credit card for rent can actually help build up your credit history.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good point. So it's like a win-win. They've really thought about both sides.
They've tried to.
But hold on, managing property is not just about rent payments. There's all sorts of other stuff, like maintenance requests or just general questions. How does KeyChain Pay handle that?
So for that, they've got this 24/7 generative AI chatbot. It's like a virtual property manager. It can answer tenant questions, take care of those maintenance requests, even walk tenants through things like setting up utilities.
It's like having a super efficient assistant who never clocks out.
Right. And the idea is it's available anytime. So even if a tenant have a question in the middle of the night, they can get a response.
Wow. Okay, so they call it a peace of mind platform, and I'm starting to see why. But let's talk security for a minute because we're dealing with people's financial info here. How secure is all this?
That's a big one. They say they use banking-level encryption and security measures to protect all the sensitive data.
So they're taking it seriously.
It seems like they are. They've got risk-based two-factor authentication too, especially for those split payments across multiple cards.
Okay, that makes sense.
And importantly, they don't actually store any card information on their servers. It's all tokenized.
So that adds an extra layer of protection.
It does. And to top it off, they've got a UK FCA payment institution license.
So they're operating under some pretty strict oversight then.
They are.
That's good to hear. It sounds like they're putting a lot of effort into security. But let's be real, no system's perfect. Are there any downsides or limitations that we should be aware of?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing is, tenants don't get to choose their own payment date.
Really?
KeyChain Pay's AI does all the calculations and decides the best date to charge to avoid late payments. But that lack of flexibility might not work for everyone.
Yeah, I can see that being an issue for some people. So while it's trying to be super efficient, it might not fit everyone's individual needs perfectly.
Right.
Anything else to keep in mind?
Well, there's also the transaction fee.
Oh, right. Is that something tenants need to worry about?
KeyChain Pay is upfront about the fee, but they leave it up to the landlord to decide whether to pass that cost on to the tenant or absorb it themselves.
Okay, so there's some flexibility there at least, but definitely something for both landlords and tenants to think about. What about just getting set up? What kind of info do you need to get a smart contract going?
They've tried to keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
Landlords mostly just provide the details about the rental, the address, rent amount, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Tenants give some basic contact information, and once the smart contract is set up, the AI takes over.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So we've talked about automating rent payments, this AI chatbot, all the security features, even some potential concerns. But I'm curious about the bigger picture. What kind of impact is KeyChain Pay actually having out there in the real world?
Well, they're definitely getting noticed. They've partnered with some pretty big names in real estate, like Hang Lung Properties in Hong Kong.
Oh, wow. I know them. They're a big deal.
Yeah, they are. And they've been featured in major publications, too, like the South China Morning Post.
So they're getting some serious recognition. That definitely adds to their credibility.
It does.
It seems like they're really making waves in the industry.
They are. And there's more. They were just accepted into the MasterCard Start Path program.
What's that?
It's a program that helps promising startups scale their businesses.
Oh, I see. So they're not just getting attention, they're getting support from major players in the financial world.
Exactly.
That says a lot about their potential.
It does. Makes you wonder, how a platform like this could actually change the whole rental landscape.
Yeah, we've talked about the benefits for like individual landlords and tenants, but could KeyChain Pay, shake things up even more broadly, like with access to housing or even the financial side of the market?
Like, think of those ripples you get when you toss a stone in a pond, right?
Yeah.
We see the splash right away, but those ripples keep going.
So where do you see those ripples heading with KeyChain Pay?
Well, think about all those hurdles people usually face when they're trying to rent a place.
Hmm.
Background checks, credit scores, all those application fees.
Yeah.
That can be a real roadblock, especially for folks who are new to a city or maybe don't have a perfect financial history. And KeyChain Pay's system, it kind of streamlines a lot of that.
So you're saying KeyChain Pay could actually make it easier for people to find a place to live?
It's possible. With AI doing the tenant screening and rent collection being automated, landlords might be more open to considering applicants they might have passed over before.
That's a pretty interesting thought. But couldn't there be some downsides too? Like, what if all this automation means less personal interaction between landlords and tenants?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. Building a good relationship between landlords and tenants, it usually takes open communication, building trust, and we don't want tech to get in the way of that.
Exactly. No one wants to feel like they're just dealing with some faceless machine all the time. It's all about finding the right balance.
Absolutely. And, maybe KeyChain Pay could actually free up landlords' time so they can focus on those personal interactions instead of spending hours on paperwork and chasing down rent. They could be building those relationships with their tenants, being more responsive to their needs.
Now that's what I call peace of mind. But couldn't there be job losses too? If AI is handling so much of the property management work, what happens to the people who are doing those jobs now?
Anytime you see automation, yeah, there's that worry about jobs disappearing. And the real estate world, that's no different.
Right.
But it's important to remember that tech, it often creates new jobs too. It's more like a shift in what kind of jobs are needed.
So instead of like a complete takeover, it's more like things are changing, the industry's adapting.
Exactly. Property managers, they might need to learn new skills, maybe focus more on things like data analysis, customer service, those areas where you really need human judgment.
So it's all about keeping up with the changes, right?
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the social side, the jobs. What about the financial side of a system like KeyChain Pay?
Things get really interesting there. Imagine a world where rent's always paid on time, like clockwork, less risk of late fees, missed payments.
Sounds pretty ideal.
It could create more stability for both sides, landlords and tenants.
So it's not just about those individual transactions, it's about the whole financial health of the rental market, right?
Exactly. If those rent payments are more predictable, it could have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It can make it easier for landlords to get loans, for instance, or to invest in improving their properties.
And for tenants, knowing that rent's always covered, that could reduce stress, maybe even boost their credit scores.
Exactly. It's about that sense of security, knowing what to expect. And that's valuable these days.
But wouldn't this also give companies like KeyChain Pay a lot of power? They'd be handling tons of financial data, basically controlling a big chunk of the housing market.
That's a real concern. As these platforms grow, we absolutely need the right regulations, oversight to keep things in check.
So it's not just the tech itself, it's the rules around it too.
Right. We need to make sure they're doing things the right way, protecting people's data, not doing anything that could hurt people or the whole market.
So responsibility is a big part of this too.
Huge. Innovation's great, but it has to go hand in hand with doing what's right, looking out for everyone involved.
It's a lot to consider. It seems like KeyChain Pay's tapped into something big here. They're tackling those real pain points in renting. They're doing it in a way that could have a huge impact.
And that's what's so fascinating about exploring these new technologies. We're not just looking at a new app or service. We're looking at how we might live differently, how we interact, how we think about these basic parts of our society.
It's like we're seeing the start of a whole new era. We don't know exactly what the future holds, but it's exciting and a little nerve-wracking at the same time.
It is. And that's why these conversations matter. We need to be in the know, ask the tough questions, make sure tech serves us, not the other way around.
Couldn't agree more. But before we get too deep into all the philosophical stuff, let's bring it back down to earth for a sec. We've talked about KeyChain Pay kind of on its own. How does it actually compare to other property management tools out there? What are other experts saying about it?
That's a great question. And it's the perfect way to jump into the next part of our deep dive. We'll look at those comparisons, see what industry leaders think about KeyChain Pay's place in the market, and figure out if it really lives up to all the hype.
Okay, so we've seen what KeyChain Pay is all about, their whole vision for the future of renting and how it could, change everything from finding tenants to keeping the market stable. But, they're not the only ones out there trying to shake things up in this space, are they? There are tons of other companies doing property management stuff. What makes KeyChain Pay so different?
It's true. The whole prop tech world is exploding. New companies popping up all over the place offering all kinds of solutions. But the thing about KeyChain Pay, the thing that's got people talking is, well, it's that combo of AI, doing all the heavy lifting, automating everything, and this focus they have on making the whole experience, smoother, less stressful for landlords and tenants.
So it's not just about taking the old way of doing things and making it digital. It's like they're trying to use tech to change how things work at a deeper level. But are the experts actually buying into this?
There's definitely a lot of buzz, a lot of people talking about KeyChain Pay. And the fact that they're partnering with these big real estate companies, getting into programs like MasterCard's Start Path, that shows they're being taken seriously. A lot of experts see them as a real disruptor, like a company that could change the whole game for property management.
It's like when the iPhone first came out, everyone was trying to figure out if it was a fad or the future, right? So is KeyChain Pay like the iPhone of property management?
It's too early to say for sure, but the potential is definitely there. Just like the iPhone led to this whole universe of apps and services, KeyChain Pay, it could be the starting point for a whole new generation of tools that make every part of renting better, from searching for a place to dealing with utilities, even settling disagreements.
Okay, so that's exciting. But even the iPhone, it had its limits, it had competition. Are there any challenges or rivals that KeyChain Pay needs to watch out for?
For sure. No company's an island, right?
Right.
There are plenty of other prop tech companies out there, all fighting for the same customers, all with their own strengths and strategies. KeyChain Pay, they're going to have to be quick on their feet, always innovating, adapting to stay ahead of the game.
It's like a tech version of survival of the fittest, only the best ones make it. So what do you think are the biggest hurdles for a company like KeyChain Pay?
I'd say one big one is managing that growth. As they get bigger, they got to keep that focus on making things easy for users and keeping everything secure. They can't let speed come at the expense of quality or privacy.
And they have to listen to what their users are saying, right?
Yeah.
Even with the best AI in the world, there are always going to be situations where you need a human touch, where the system needs tweaking.
Exactly. They can't get so caught up in automation that they forget about the human side of things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, renting is about people, their needs, what they're looking for in a place to live, that sense of security.
So it's a tricky balance, embracing the efficiency of tech, but also holding on to those human connections.
Definitely a challenge. But it's one that KeyChain Pay seems to be aware of. Like in all their marketing stuff, they keep talking about peace of mind for both sides, landlords and tenants. It's not just about making things automatic. It's about using tech to make renting a more harmonious experience.
I get it. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? We dug into KeyChain Pay, what it's all about, how it could change the rental market, even took a peek into the future a bit.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has. From the nuts and bolts of those smart contracts to like the bigger questions about society, there's so much to think about.
Absolutely.
That's what I love about these deep dives. We get to explore these new technologies not just as cool gadgets, but as the things that could really change how we live our lives.
It's about connecting those dots, seeing the bigger picture.
And I have to say, as we wrap things up here, I'm feeling both excited and a bit cautious. Excited about all the potential of tech, how it can solve problems and make things better, but cautious too. We have to be careful about the unintended consequences, make sure we're using these innovations in a way that's ethical, responsible.
Couldn't agree more. As we move forward, it's on us to stay informed, ask the hard questions, make sure tech is working for us, not the other way around.
Well said. So, to everyone listening, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember, the future's not something that just happens to us. We create it together through the choices we make, the things we do, and how we use these powerful tools. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.